and that is Connor. Connor is we're getting there. Okay, we're gonna set this thing up tonight, ladies and gentlemen. We don't even know what we're gonna play. Connor and I are here. Tonight is not about the basketball. Tonight's about the arguments. We got a lot to talk about tonight, Connor.
Rutledge, I don't think we have anything to talk about.
I think first of all we're gonna talk about what we're gonna play. So I'm gonna play. We're gonna talk about basketball. I'm gonna play the team that has my MVP candidate on it. So I'm gonna be the Milwaukee Bucks. Who are you gonna be?
Well, if we're talking about MVP candidates, I guess that means I get to go be the Denver Nuggets and get to talk about how great Joker is.
I guess so. And we'll jump into that actually now as we start. So it's basketball time. Uh, there you go. So it's basketball season. We are 7 days, 7 actual days away from the play-in tournament. I will tell you, I am more excited for the play-in tournament than LeBron James is, and LeBron James needs to be pretty stressed because right now, if the play-in tournament were to start today, the play-in games in the West would be the Lakers versus the Warriors and the Memphis Grizzlies versus the Spurs. In the East, it would be the Pacers versus the Russell Westbrook Wizards, and we'll get to Russell Westbrook in a minute, versus Boston and Miles Garrett, the grown man Charlotte Hornets. So,
You mean
Connor, who
Miles
are
Bridges? I didn't know Miles
Miles?
Garrett was a two-sport player.
I did. He's a grown man. That's all I'll tell you. I am advantageously known to get names wrong on this show, and Connor is known to correct me on the air.
It's very
Um,
important to make sure we're talking about the right people. I would hate for our viewer to think that Miles Garrett plays for Charlotte, Rutledge.
that's true. You know what? Friend Street Sports, come for the friendships. Don't stay for the names.
So So what's interesting, you talk about LeBron in the play-in tournament. LeBron is hurt again tonight. He's not going to be playing against the Knicks tonight, which big game for the Knicks and a big game for the Lakers. Oddly enough, I thought the Lakers will have had it pulled together by now.
Huge for the Lakers. They are a game and a half back from Portland, sitting at that sixth seed. So they really needed. Oh, that was a joke. They really needed this game and this win. I know Connor earlier we talked about the NBA playoffs, and both you and I flip-flopped on if Portland was going to be in or out. I said Portland would be in, you said Dallas would be in. They're currently both into the playoffs without the play-in. I'm surprised that LA still hasn't put it together this late. I know it's injuries, but this has been a big shock for me.
Oh yeah, no, they've definitely struggled, and you can only go so long off of the we're going to turn it on when we can type of mentality, just because that works maybe in college a little better when you can kind of feel like you can quote turn it on. But the thing about when you're not just in the NBA, but when you're in the NBA playoffs, you'll be playing NBA caliber playoff teams as well. So you'll have teams ready to roll, ready to play, and just because the Lakers are so good and they are the reigning champs, everybody's going to get their best shot.
Yeah, it's going to be huge, and I know that at least in my opinion, LeBron and a little bit of how AD was playing before he joined LeBron, they have both been players that have been I'll turn it on at the right time and try to make a run. Lady AD of course was carrying New Orleans for a couple years. But LeBron has definitely been once he got to Miami, it's been all right, maybe rest some games and then you could tell there's a difference between night in night out LeBron and I'm here because I'm a grown man, just like Miles Garrett LeBron.
Miles Garrett, LeBron,
My,
and the interesting thing too, it's I definitely believe that if LeBron feels like he could play, he would play. Now, with that, we are not, we are not, we won't see a very healthy version of LeBron throughout the playoffs. Um, him even if he comes back tomorrow night uh, or their next game, LeBron is definitely going to have to manage his injury time throughout the course of the playoffs, however long that might be, which I think could very well be a quick exit for the Lakers if it holds that they have to play the Golden State Warriors, Rutledge. On a scale of 1 to 10, let's do this. On a scale of 1 to 10, how much confidence would you give the Lakers to beat the Golden State Warriors in a best of one series?
In a best of one series with a hurt LeBron who's not doing very well, I actually am going to not put my confidence in the Lakers. I am going to put I'm going to put my confidence in Giannis right there on that run. But
That's a
I'm
big
going to
time dunk.
that was huge. I'm going to put my confidence in the way that Steph Curry and Draymond Green and everyone have been playing this season. We've talked the Warriors a bit. Giannis said no. They had injury problems as well. Um, Curry has really come back, and he's still implementing. Draymond Green loves to talk about how good he is defensively, but this Golden State Warriors team is had to deal with adversity this year, which is of course our favorite sports buzzword all the time, but I think they've really got a hunger behind them, especially when they fell so far down in the standings. They were 10th at one point this year, and now they've really kind of battled their way back, sitting in the 8th seed. I think they will beat the Lakers. How do you feel?
I definitely think that the I would put my money on the Golden State Warriors as opposed to the LA Lakers. I think for the simple fact that you all it takes is one hot Steph Curry night, and there is nobody to counter that for the Lakers. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that it's definitely something that is you're gonna have to really work through as the Lakers. And if they don't figure it out, we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, definitely. This is a different Lakers team than what we saw last year. So, playing tournament's huge. I'm super excited for it, Connor. How excited are you? Are?
I am more excited than Russell Westbrook after another triple double, Rutledge.
Yes, Russell Westbrook took down Oscar Robinson's triple-double record. The Washington Post actually put out some information that there were 47% more triple-doubles this year than last year. And I watched a good take on PTI about this, but the triple-double world, and especially getting assists, is a lot different in the league now than it was in Oscar Robinson's day. So, um, Connor, how big do you take this achievement for Russell Westbrook?
I think that it is. I think it's a different era, so every offensive stat needs to be taken with a pretty big time grain of salt. Now, I think that here's the thing that is Russell Westbrook can say as much as he wants about, being more about the team stats and things like that. I think Russell Westbrook really cares a lot about this triple double stat line. And unfortunately, it's weird, right? As much as players will say, "Oh, I love to play with Russ. I really want to play with Russ." He's kind of gone downhill as it relates to second teammates throughout the course of his career. Of course, going from Kevin Durant to James Harden. Bradley Beal's no slouch, but you know he's no Kevin Durant or James Harden. So I definitely see uh, Russ. He's going to go down as an all-time great player in terms of just an individual player, but he won't. If you had to pick between Russell Westbrook or Isaiah Thomas for one game, I'm picking Isaiah Thomas. I'm picking John Stockton. There's a variety of other point guards I would pick in terms of leading a team and doing point guard related things.
I actually agree with you on that take because I don't think that this is Russell Westbrook. He reminds me of Vince Carter with the Raptors in the 90s. It's not that Vince Carter was really good. He had a long career in the league, but the Raptors in the 90s were not as dominant as Vince Carter was in the slam dunk contest. Just because you're good doesn't mean that your team's going to do well. I saw a really good take on PTI today, which said Michael Wilbon came out and basically brought out that Antonio Kornheiser, they said, in Oscar Robinson's day, it was position basketball, as in your position was what you played. In Russell, today's NBA is very much floater freelance basketball where you kind of go where you need to do to get it done. So, yeah, he scores a bunch, and yes, he gives assists, and he does well with being on the court, but that doesn't mean that it's leading to W's because that night he got that triple double, they lost to Atlanta. So
And
doesn't
Russ
matter.
took the last shot.
Yeah.
He took and he missed the last shot, which was a three. Yeah,
So
what a Russell. That's like Jameis Winston. His last pass as a Buccaneer was a pick six. That's like Kobe, his last game scoring 60, but literally taking more shots that night than anybody ever in NBA history.
yeah.
That is definitely a very Russell Westbrook thing to do.
So that's the end of our first quarter. Connor, what's your transition quarters? Give me your 30-second MVP for the NBA.
Uh, Joker. I think the big thing, and one of the reasons that why Connor was wrong, was that when Jamal Murray went down, I thought that the Nuggets were going to be fighting to even keep in the uh, keep in the non-play-in tournament, and the Nuggets have cemented themselves as a top seed with a lot of home court throughout the playoffs. So that is all in thanks to Joker. So that's what I think. What do you think, Rutledge?
I'm going Giannis. Giannis has really sort of evolved. Now this is long term, but especially this season, Giannis has kept the Bucks very, very relevant and very in the game all season long. When the East has been very good at the top, especially with the Super Nets, and especially with how good Embiid and the 76ers have been. I think, let's say Giannis moved just down the street and he was in Chicago, he would be the MVP playing on the Chicago Bulls, and we compare him to Michael Jordan all the time. So when it comes to most valuable, even when he missed 6 games, it really showed that Giannis makes a difference. So I'm going Giannis, the Greek Freak. He's having a pretty good night tonight, actually. So taking that.
That he is. He's had some pretty monster dunks, and I've had some pretty big time 3 pointers rim out, unfortunately.
Boom. So, as we go with that, Connor, it's your favorite part of the show and mine too. It's time for us to talk about the Cardiac Cats, the Orlando City Soccer, and their kind of heartbreaking 1-1 tie to New York City FC. So, you watched the game, I watched the game. What did you see?
I think yet again, very thankful Nani's on the team. Now, I wish that, and I don't think this was the best offensive output we've seen from Orlando. Uh, quote golazos are really fun to watch, but I would rather watch a great team goal with a lot of great passing and being able to, as my favorite announcer Ray Hudson says, stretch the defense out like spandex on Miami Beach. And Nani scored a great goal, but that's not going to be the recipe for success. So, as we've already talked about, Orlando City needs a striker. Whether or not that's going to be Pato once he gets healthy, whether or not that's going to be DK once he comes back, whether or not that's going to be a player to be named later, that's critical. And I think letting Moutinho come back, and be able to kind of work his way back in, I think is going to be critical. You know, he was the one who gave up that penalty. If you're going to compete in the MLS, you cannot give up that penalty the way that Moutinho did. But that's his first game back after he was injured for a long time. So, you're unbeaten through 4, which, hey, that's awesome. Previous iterations of Orlando City wouldn't have been unbeaten through 4, would have given up late goals. So you got to take that. You got to take points where you can get them, but there's still some definite things to work out.
Yeah, definitely. They have some things showing they're actually a top 5 rated team on MLS's power rankings. Um, so good to see where they're going in that direction. I feel better about this team. I actually heard a good take on the ESPN broadcast, which they were actually saying to sell Nani. Let's just let not Nani, excuse me. Sell DK, let him go, and let's find ourselves a 9. I want to also bring up something else, Connor, and get your take. And something happened in MLS, which I thought was classic and really sort of helped cement the league as being, a traditional sports league. And every good sports league has good logos. And every sports league has bad logos. I will say, as a Vancouver Canucks fans, we've had one of the worst jerseys with the just like colored V's on the black sweaters. But this is a soccer one that changed, and I'm not for it. Did you see what happened to Columbus's logo?
Yeah, that Rutledge, we have 3.5 minutes. I hope you don't mind. I might take the rest of this quarter to talk about Columbus. I have a lot of thoughts on the Crew. They were just about ready to be taken out of MLS, save the Crew, you know, definitely saved the Crew. And then all of a sudden, you change, not just change their logo, but change the entire team name and identity. You can't do that. This is, we talk a lot on this show about the differences between, um, soccer and other American sports. Other American sports, you've got, you know, like the NBA, for example. It feels like teams will change their logo every 2 weeks. Uh, Soccer, I always do not like it one bit when teams change their logos. Uh, I think that one of the most beautiful things about the beautiful game is the beautiful pageantry that is associated with it, and that includes an old school logo. The nice part, the way that soccer jerseys are made, is that that crest takes up such a small part of the jersey that it really doesn't matter how old that logo might look, and it's like the Crew changed. They didn't change their color scheme, so I don't know. It's just all weird to me, Rutledge. That's my brief take, but would love to know a little bit about your take.
I was a huge fan of what Columbus was doing. I love the almost taxi cab looking jerseys. I told a friend of mine when I was at a game, I said, out of all the swag that you can get in MLS, the what the Crew have is just so classic looking. Um, and you're right, for soccer, in the same way of ownerships that tried to create the Super League in Europe and still are dealing with backlash. I don't know if they got Old Trafford back yet or not. They probably haven't. But it's not about the NBA. You think uniforms, and I love what they're doing in the NBA. The NBA is trying to be trendy and up there and different and push the boundaries and be high fashion because that's what that league is. The NFL does kind of changes to update, but kind of like what Cleveland did, sometimes they just go back to what works. Soccer, you don't change. You don't change unless it was a change you did in England hundreds of years ago. Manchester United will always be red, Manchester City will always be blue. If they swapped the people would riot more than they are now. So I think that's where um, we're still, as America, trying to understand what soccer is, what it means, what it feels. I will say I own a lot of iterations of Orlando City jerseys, but at least it's still the purple. It's still embracing the sun. It's still got the lion on it. It's still that feel. So not a fan.
Well,
Not a
you
fan
got
at
the
all.
the crest that hasn't changed, right? You talk about
Right.
Man City. I was not a fan that Man City decided to change their crest.
Yeah.
Uh, I think that was a horrible, horrible mistake. Now, granted, they won the league this year,
Hmm.
right? And nobody really seemed to mind. But I don't know. I'm still kind of, let's keep it classic, let's keep it classy, and
Right.
let's go from there. So, no, we are. Yeah, I think
Oh.
that the Columbus Crew fans have a lot to gripe about for sure. And hopefully this does not create. I kind of like Columbus being a older team in the MLS
Hmm.
and one of those more institutional type teams, and the fact that they're trying to do a lot and maybe too much, I think is that's just crossing the line.
Yeah. You gotta keep tradition where it is, and especially in the state of Ohio, where sports are just seen so differently in the state of Ohio. I respect how much the state of Ohio's into their sports. I'm sure it hurt them pretty deep.
I think that the Columbus Crew fans were not fans of that.
No, they were not. Speaking of fans, it's time for everyone as we break down our halftime report. I had a good little run on the second quarter, even though you got me on the same turnover twice, back to back. But it's
Yeah,
31.
you definitely did a good job there.
It's 31 to 27. We're playing Bucks, Nuggets, Friend Stream Sports, 8 o'clock. Come out, see us live on Tuesdays on Twitch. Subscribe to our podcast. Follow our YouTube channel. Send us some cookies. Um, be our friend. We
Real
want to be
cookies, not
yours.
computer cookies.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't want more computer cookies, but I do want real cookies. Chocolate chip? You know?
Yes, let's go.
Let's go. But something that's always hot, fresh, and delicious besides chocolate chip cookies is, are you ready for it, Connor? It is time for halftime hot take. This
Ooh.
halftime hot take, we're going to take one of our normal French stream sports way too early, extremely bold, out there predictions of who is going to play in the MLS championship game this year. Connor, who is your championship game? Go for it.
Out of the West, I'm picking LAFC. I think that they're knocking on the door, and I think that a lot of the traditional powers of the West are taking a step back, as well as Minnesota United, who 4 games in is yet to have a point. So I'm picking LAFC. And you got to score goals, and Carlos Vela is the reigning Golden Boot champion for MLS. Out of the East, here's where I'm getting a little crazy, and it kind of hurts me a little bit. I could see Inter Miami making a big run and making it all the way to the finals this year. I could see David Beckham, bringing in one of those, another old, salty, grizzled veteran that has won a lot before, and sort of, unfortunately, sort of manufacturing some culture on their way to an MLS title berth. So I am going LAFC versus Inter Miami.
That sounds like a really fun final to watch. That one hurts me to hear. Although I do like Miami's swag. They did a good job in branding. Um, as that goes, here's mine. In the West, I have Seattle. Seattle is just a traditional power of soccer in American soccer. Um, very big for them. I think they're going to take it. And I'm going to go a little wild, and not because I'm a homer, because I see it on the field. I'm going Orlando City in the East. While it's a different team, Oscar Pereira has assembled a completely different roster. He's really starting to get behind them. He's getting excited on the sidelines. They got to do something in that number 9 spot, but I feel like they clean that up of someone that when Nani lofts up his passes that he's putting up there for a better player, that person finishes and they start just crushing people. So I think they have all the pieces. They went really far in the Welcome Back MLS tournament. I think the weather was on their side. I really have a feeling about them. So I'm going very bold. I'm going to go Seattle Orlando.
Wow, that was bold. That was hot. And you left the match.
Again? Again. All right.
There we go.
Well, that's how hot my take was. I just want to end the show right there. Have a good night, ladies and gentlemen. This is Rutledge. I'm calling it. We're ending the show. I quit the game accidentally once again.
Well, Rutledge, that's a pretty bold move. So I think we could call that a draw, or at least an incomplete.
We'll call that an incomplete. We're
And
not doing all
or
times teams.
oh, we're not. Come on.
We're not. I'm watching you. Proof that this
See,
is a live sports show. We have bloopers and blunders all the time. Proof that we are amateur sports podcasters.
that is so true.
Yeah.
And I'm going to switch my teams, if you don't mind. Do you mind if I switch my teams?
Okay, what are you going to do?
I'm going to be the Pelicans.
You're going to be the Pelicans?
I'm going to be the Pellies because the Pellies are soon to be a hopeful MVP candidate in Zion.
He is hurt, though. He's out for the rest of the year.
Yeah, and
Well,
so
I'm
is
going to go.
Jalen Brown, by the way. Talk about the
Yeah,
wheels falling off for the Celtics.
they really did. Well, fine. If we're going out in the future, then I'm going to be the Atlanta Hawks because Trey Young is my secret basketball best friend.
Ooh, old Trey Young.
Plus, I
I don't
like,
love his goatee. I don't love it. I don't love what the facial hair that Trey Young has going on.
yeah, I do like Atlanta's swag though. It's kind of like it's a throwback look, but plus they modernized it. Out of all the things Nike's done to sort of help grow everybody, what they have in Atlanta, look at that core. That's so hot. I just love that so much. Hot Atlanta.
That's so hot right now.
Okay, well we're back. We're bringing it to the future because it's time for Connor and I, and we have more time to debate, so this can be a good thing. So we're gonna talk and go over some debate topics that we have. And as this goes, our first topic tonight is we are going to be sitting down and we're going to discuss which type of championship is harder to win. So we have two sports that we're doing, and we're going to go NBA, and we're going to go NFL. Connor, which one are you going to pick tonight to defend?
I think that I don't think you need much defense on this. The NFL is both. It's always hard to win a title. The NFL is much harder to win a title than the NBA,
Well, I'm glad you
no
said
doubt.
that because I think it's way harder to win in the NBA. So, I will give you my take. So we're going to go back in
Please do.
time. Oh, I will. First, I want to get this shot to go in.
Oh,
Oh,
can't even get that right. Come on, man.
no. I can't get the shot. I can't play the game. Okay. So as it goes in the wide world of basketball, before we even go in that basketball world, I want to compare two greats. I want to talk about Tom Brady and I want to talk about the one and only Michael Jordan. And we're going to zoom in on while Tom Brady didn't win a championship in this season, we're going to talk about 2007 for when he went out there and had an undefeated team, and then we're going to talk about Tom Brady's Michael Jordan in 1996, very famous Lakers.
You're just so I can understand. You're comparing a year in which Brady did not win a title to a year that Jordan did win a title.
Correct. But here's what I want to
Okay.
say is the structure
Okay.
of schedule and why it's harder to win a championship in the NBA. Brady had a 16 game season, which they went undefeated, plus all the way got into the Super Bowl. As that goes, on that schedule, they still played the Buffalo Bills, the Jets, and the Dolphins twice. All were trash. They only had less than 4 games that were even within a touchdown, and really only one they struggle against the Ravens and they struggle against the Giants, who beat them in the Super Bowl because of a catch that could have happened because there was gum on the top of someone's helmet. In the NFL, your scheduling department and how the NFL gives you a schedule and what division you sit in and how good those organizations are really does you a lot of favors because 8 of your games are against very predictable teams. And even though they had what is considered one of, in my opinion, the greatest quarterbacks of all time, the NBA, the Patriots still had to sit there and they got in trouble for filming Jets practice. They've done some other stuff bad on social media. So it's not as if they just cruised into it. When Michael Jordan won MVP in 1996 and they won a championship, which, like I said, not faulting that Tom Brady did not that year, people that he still had to play against were, just have a couple names written down here. Uh, some of these names, had to beat Charles Barkley, Shaquille O'Neal, David Robinson, Karl Malone were all active players in the
He
leagues. All
he
of
beat
those
them in the
are.
same year in '96.
He did.
Just curious. Just wondering.
Just curious. Yes. All of those were studs. And you have to go through a very long gauntlet of a schedule plus then play 7 game playoff series. And the parity of a roster in the NBA is much farther than it is in the NFL. Let's take the Lakers. The Lakers last year, LeBron gets hurt, AD gets hurt, they lose Rondo, they lose Howard for their bench depth. They went from beating the Miami Heat like a tiger playing with its food in front of the parents that made that food to now they are in a situation to where they might get a first playoff buyout, knockout, not just because they just don't have all the pieces in place. So the power of one, to quote the famous Jet Li movie, The One, there can only be the one. The power of one in the NBA matters so much more that if you don't have it put together, it's not going to work. So that's my opening kind of ramble about why the NBA is so much harder. There's so many things that have to go right than just saying, "Oh, look at my schedule. I have a smart quarterback. Here we go."
Well, first off, Rutledge, I want to thank you for. We could really end right now. You actually just made my point for me, comparing Michael Jordan's '96 season where he did win a title, where Tom Brady, if you're talking about winning a championship, he couldn't even win a championship with probably the greatest offense of all time. You want to talk about winning a title and the success and what's needed there throughout the course of a season. I think that one to talk about your point of teams, yes, Jordan having to beat all those players, David Robinson, Charles Barkley, things like that. You're talking about regular season, which let's remember, as we always talk about, in the NBA, there's really 3 seasons. You've got the season up until the All-Star break, you've got the season after the All-Star break, and then you've got the season during the NBA playoffs. So, I think as it relates to Jordan maybe beating good players, which Tom Brady also beat good players. Just to continue your conversation there, it's different in the playoffs than it is a regular season.
Vince
Doesn't matter
Carter
what
just beat
sport
all
you're in.
your players, and his knees
Doesn't
don't
matter what
even work.
sports you're in. It's always harder in the playoffs than the regular season. Number two, you talk about organizational structure and things like that. Let's think about the intricacies of an organizational structure to have just 15 versus 53, 15 players versus 53 players, and then 24 positions on a roster. So the amount of orchestration that goes into one play in football, let alone the amount of plays throughout the course of a regular season, is substantial. You can have within an NBA game, you can have one player have a bad night that's on the starting roster, and MJ goes off for 55, and then all of a sudden the Bulls have a 1-0 series advantage, right? So, whereas one play, right, that might not even happen to you, but one really good play from the other team is the reason why you lose, a la the catch of the Giants versus the Patriots. And number 3, to roundly rebuke you, you say the grind of a playoff series. You know what that means, actually? The grind of an NBA playoff series means that it's not win or go home. You have to when you're in the NFL playoffs, it is do or die every week. Every week throughout the course of the playoffs, it is do or die. And I think that it's harder to win through the NFL playoffs because there are less playoff games to play, and because everything is so much more intricate and so much more. There's so much more on the line. So now, if I can maybe spend just a brief second, Rutledge, and I'll let you have the last word on this. I think that we always need to remember throughout the course of a season, the other thing that the NBA does not have nearly as much of is injuries. Your best players will play and do your best plays. And quite frankly, the NBA, there are injuries for sure, but the NFL, you talk about in terms of a war of attrition and a battle throughout the course of a regular season, just making sure guys are healthy. I've played on deep run playoff teams. You aren't healthy by the end of a season. And to be able to fight through that mentally, I think, is incredibly important and more difficult than a basketball title.
See, the NBA has an MVP, and then they have a playoff MVP, because the playoffs in the NBA are so much of a gauntlet that, yes, you're not getting hit. You're not out there in the grass getting hit, the snow, the rain, the mud getting hit. But the true mastery it takes to have to get through an entire season to get seeded in a tournament and then do well in that tournament is so much more of an impact.
You have 82 games.
That's a lot. That's a lot of strategy. You got to save. So look at
that's a lot of nights off. You don't see load management in the NBA, do you? Or the NFL, rather.
There was load management with the Colts one year. They could have gone undefeated and they did not because they were doing load management. It happens in week 16. That's why that's why you have to have your fantasy season one.
Oh, I think that
was Lonzo
the
Ball's
difference
best
between
play
the
of his
NFL
life.
load management and the NBA load management is resting a group of starters where you already have your playoff seed locked up versus doing it on a October or November night just because you're playing, quote, Memphis, a team that you could probably beat regardless. I think goes to show that the amount of games also leads to the conversation of why it is harder to win in the NFL than the NBA. But do you have any more last words before we move on to our final argument of the night, which
We
we'll
have
have
so
plenty
much more
more?
time, so I have so much more words. It's the um what I think in that with the NBA taking the time is that sure you could say that people get rest in October, November when they're playing Orlando and then they travel and they play Memphis. However, that is in order to save you for the long haul of it because Connor, you even said it yourself tonight. The Lakers without LeBron James playing the Golden State Warriors, that's something that you need to have your best people on the floor for because when it matters, it matters. If it was in a series, it would even matter more. Let's not even go back and look at how crucial the series was of Warriors versus Raptors when the Raptors finally brought a championship home to Canada. If it wasn't for the Kevin Durant injury, which we all watched his Achilles just disappear live on national television, the Raptors would have lost in a 7-game series. The Miami Heat with their famous comeback to where, um, the trophy got unveiled on the floor for the Spurs, and the Heat came back in Game 6 and then took it in Game 7. The ability to win a series or lose a series for some teams and how tough it is to close, even though the Spurs had that series won and even though the Warriors had the best roster, to be able to close out and win a series is harder than just playing to the devotion of 60 minutes of football.
I
Be-
think you're having a different conversation with yourself. Not to say that there's not more drama or more excitement throughout the course of a NBA playoff series, but to have you talk about the Spurs versus the Heat series where they had that out there, they have the trophy out there, and I think that as all you needed is one game, right? And you, because it's a series, it was okay that the Heat lost and lost those other games. There is zero margin for error in the NFL playoffs. There is 3 games worth of margin of error each round in the NBA playoffs. You can, as we talk about, Kevin Durant's injury changed the course of the series, not the game. You look even back in history, right? Isaiah Thomas, when he went down with his injury, that changed the course of the series. So, it'll be tough I think being able to say, look, you've got just the one game and the less margin of error. Not only that, but it's not like the NFL's a slouch of a season either, right? You talk about the grind of the NFL or the NBA, night in, night out. NFL, that's a little bit of a grind as well, especially as you are making deep, deep, deep playoff runs, playing loads of night games, playing on potentially short weeks. As the NFL playoffs start, having to travel cross country. The flight from Green Bay to Seattle is not short. And in fact, the NBA has until recently the NBA Finals, that 2-3-2 format was actually created, and the NBA will change their schedules to lighten travel. So you've got a variety of factors that, especially as it relates to the playoffs, that are very, just that margin of error is so tough in the NFL. And as it relates to the playoffs, I'll share a quick story with you here. We're going to go back into the Wheaton College machine. When my sophomore year, when Wheaton College made it all the way to the semifinals, we rode a running back named Rocky Ging all the way up until the semifinals. The quarterfinals, when we played Franklin College, Rocky got hurt that game and was really struggling just to remain healthy. That one game, the carryover from Rocky's injury from the previous game to the next game had an incredible impact on that semifinal game. So not only is the margin of error small, but one injury from a previous round could have plenty of impact as opposed to a long NBA series where you kind of just got to hang on for your best player to come back and kind of go from there.
Well, I will say that in this argument we will agree to disagree, as that
We got one
goes.
more argument in us, don't we?
Oh, we do. And this argument is about off-season drama. So, Connor, square this one up for us. You can take the lead on this one.
You know, Rutledge, one of the there's three quarterbacks. There's three stories that this conversation has really started from. Number one, I think, we have Adam Schefter breaking the story about Aaron Rodgers on draft night. Number two, we have potential friend of the show, but show favorite, Russell Wilson, and all of the unhappiness that you kept on hearing from the Seahawks back office. And you have all the talk surrounding Tim Tebow being one of now 90 players on the Jacksonville Jaguars roster. Rutledge, the NFL feels like it is a soap opera, and I don't quite know if I'm here for it.
Go on.
What do you think? What do you think about all of these non-NFL, non-football related stories that we're hearing? Are they overhyped? Are they underhyped? Does it not matter as much? What do you think?
I actually think these stories for the NFL are important because, and not just the NFL, but sports in general. I think these stories are important to sort of understand what's going on and what's talking. So there's been a lot of talk of these. Now, on Colin Cowherd, Uncle Colin show, Jamal Adams came out and said today if Aaron Rodgers were to leave, which he hasn't left yet, he would also think about packing up out of Green Bay. That's a massive conversation to have and to say on a very well-known, well-respected sports radio show that if my quarterback's not there, I'm not going to be there. And that's just based off of the conversations that have happened. I want to take it back in time and talk about, to me, the first big quarterback drama that I followed that was important. Brett Favre, end of the Packers time, right before the New York Jets. What was going to happen? What was he going to do? He's retired. Now he's back. They want him. They want Rodgers. They're going to go with Rodgers. It was a franchise-changing move for the Jets because in his debut, Favre went out there. He threw 194 yards in his first game, and then in week 4 later, he threw 6 touchdowns against the your always pick Arizona Cardinals. You think about it. He took a franchise from an 8-3 record from 4-12 to 8-3. As that goes, following that along with Favre, if we would have just not said anything all summer long, and then at training camp, oh, by the way, Brett Favre's a Jet, would not have, yes, we would have watched it on the field, but would not have made the hugest impact as it did. You look at the decision, we will always remember watching LeBron James's jerseys for Cleveland burn because of how betrayed the city of Cleveland felt. These are people where we buy their names on our t-shirts and our jerseys and spend hundreds of dollars. I think it's important to know what they're doing and where they're going at all times. I
Oh,
mean,
nice block. So who do you think is the who do you think Rutledge is the why is it important that you and I know that? Well, first off, I didn't realize you're breaking news here. I didn't realize Jamal Adams actually played for the Green Bay Packers. I think you're talking about Devontae Adams.
once again, come for
Uh,
the friendship, not for the names.
um, number two, I think that and why do we need to know about what what Brett Favre's thinking? Why do we
Because
need to know that Patrick Peterson is thinking about his thoughts on Kirk Cousins versus Justin Fields?
well, let's frame it up and I'll answer your question with a different question. Do you want to wait for preseason to find out that you're going to now watch Jordan Love and and Geno Smith lead 2 playoff teams into the future? Is that the NFL you want to be surprised with, or would you rather have a little bit of a heads up before training camp to know that, oh, 2 franchises that I've sort of respected over the past couple years are about to be garbage?
I think yet again, Rutledge, I think you're having two different conversations with yourself. It's there's the way in which we're looking at sort of like a transfer portal type situation, and then there's folks that make stories. If you followed what Adam, all the talking heads were saying about Adam Schefter after the thing came out that Adam Schefter had the Aaron Rodgers story and was sitting on it, everybody was very, very cautious not to kind of bury Schefter for that. But Schefter kind of made a story, right? Schefter, uh, it, the timing of it was for the drama, for the quote soap opera element, as opposed to saying, "Hey, uh, let's talk about who's going to get drafted where." So I think that as reporters maybe sit on stories a little bit too long, maybe as there's unsubstantiated stories that get out there, and then all of a sudden a GM is being asked what somebody thinks, you know, they're like, man, he hurt my feelings because he said something bad about my mama, but he didn't say anything bad about his mama. And I think you get a little kind of sidetracked to what's kind of the main thing, and that's putting together a successful football team.
So you don't think these conversations are important because Adam Schefter essentially fabricated one.
I think that is an example of a reason why the story is important. Another story that is out there now that I don't think is that important at all is the fact that Tim Tebow is a Jacksonville Jaguar. Uh, but that's everything that the sports talking heads were talking about today. For our viewer out there, I'm in Orlando in the flesh here, but I spent today in Atlanta driving around doing some business meetings, so I got the time to really hone in the Sirius XM radio and be able to. Everyone was talking about their thoughts about Tim Tebow. Tim Tebow is one of now 90 players on the Jacksonville Jaguars. If Tim Tebow makes the roster, that is a much larger story than Tim Tebow is being brought into training camp to probably be a warm body. It's like, is there really not another good baseball story out there in terms of even in season stuff? Is there really not a just another story out there outside of, hey, a guy who's in his mid 30s, who's old, slow, and short, he's going to be tight end for the team that drafted number one in this
How tall
past
is
this
Tebow?
past season. 6'2".
That's kind of short for a tight end.
6'2", clocked, I believe, yeah, 6'2", kind of 4'7", 40, and that was in his mid 20s. And let's remember, Tim Tebow was last seen playing quarterback. He was not putting his hand in the dirt as a tight end, having to block defensive ends that are trying to put food on the table and make generational wealth for their families. So, I think it's a total non. I think the Tim Tebow stuff is a total non-story, and I think we're seeing more and more total non-stories throughout the NFL offseason.
I see the Tim Tebow signing as an Urban Meyer culture grab. He's trying to really win his locker room, so he's going to put someone in there that he knows is going to listen and going to respect him and going to buy in. But I don't know if he's a starter. I don't even know if he makes the roster. But in other news, so
Oh
you were in
gosh.
Atlanta, little Sirius XM. What type of rental
Oh
car
yeah,
did you
man.
have?
Pardon me.
What type of rental car are we cruising around in?
I went Chevy Malibu.
Okay,
I went
leather
Chevy
seats.
Malibu. That would be another sponsor that I'd love to have on the show. Would be Chevy.
That would be that'd be great. That's nice. Little ATL, little leather seats.
A little ATL came in today. Drove up to Gainesville, Georgia. Have a lunch meeting. Then head down to kind of right on the north side of the perimeter
Okay.
for another appointment. Then headed to the airport. And Rutledge, I am pouring it on you again tonight.
I know it is. I miss the Bucks. I regret quitting my. Every time I quit the game, I'm winning. I feel bad because I'm like it's one-sided, and this is a 30-point game. You know, healthy Zion. Lonzo Ball is having a clinic with me. I'm skipping this timeout because I'm not upset. Skip the timeout.
Lonzo Ball is doing well. Zion's got 20 points. It's been a good night, but yeah, no, I think the other. It's just there's a ton of non-stories out there in the NFL, um, but I think that maybe there's some folks and some NFL reporters that have seen how much traction the NBA gets during their offseason that maybe they're kind of getting a little jealous.
So who do you think the offseason matters more to, the NFL or the NBA?
In terms of reporting, in
In
terms of gaining fanhood, or in terms of putting together a championship caliber team?
all of the above.
I think that the as it relates to kind of fans, I could see. I think that the NBA really needs to have some interesting storylines. Um, One of the things I never forget this about the NFL versus the NBA. We have a more personal relationship with the NBA players, and in some ways also, even though we don't hear from them as much, MLS players, because we get to see their faces. Because we get to see their faces, we feel more in tune to them, and as opposed to just having the jerseys and the helmets, and we'll see people's headshots on the little sidebar. So no, I think it's very important as it relates to storylines um, to show NFL, or to have more NBA storylines. But I think as it relates to putting together a championship team, I mean, there is so much. I think the biggest thing for me, it's always going to come down to roster size. Because of roster size, the amount of scouting that needs to go on, there is so much that's involved with putting together a great NFL team, an NFL championship caliber team.
And there's always so many misses that happen with putting together an NBA team. We'll go a little hometown heroes and talk about how many times the Orlando Magic franchise has really got it wrong. And they're going to try to do it again and again and again because
There
this
was a
year they
time where
gutted
the
it.
Magic were a pretty well run organization.
There was a time. Now is not
It
that
is not
time.
this time.
They want it to be this time, but this is not their time at all. And boom goes the dynamite.
It's now 15 points for Drew Holiday,
That
and he has an
is,
F paint rating.
yeah. And oh, there's another bad pass. Lonzo Ball, is he gonna get it? I thought he was gonna get it just the way this game is going.
Very close, very close.
All right, Connor, you've laid it on thick. You have made your point. We're in the fourth quarter. Do we want to call picks and I will say that this one is another tie or secede this, or are we playing this thing through?
I wouldn't mind. I'll go with two ties tonight,
Okay.
and we can go through with our picks.
We'll go through with our picks as we go into the fourth quarter. So we'll have a little bit of time to break these down. Wednesday, as you know, we are in the last week of the season. I want to talk about this is a return game. Tomorrow, you're going to have Wizards with all their amazing players and all their amazing triple doubles and Bradley Beal versus the Hawks, who are hopefully better than what you're seeing on the court. Who are you taking?
I'm going Hawks. I think that Trey Young can match the backcourt for against the Wiz. So I'm going to go actually, because they're playing twice. You're right, or pardon me, they're just playing once. I'm going to go Hawks.
I will also go Hawks. Uh, I I know the Wizards are, Westbrook is great, but don't think they have it, and the Hawks need the playoff seeding more.
Mhm.
Thursday, game time. Portland, Trailblazers. They play the Suns. So is this one of those moments that you bash on Connor to where Phoenix is going to take some rest time as they've kind of solidified themselves in the playoffs, or does Portland take it, and do they take it serious?
I think that Phoenix is going to take this very seriously, and I'm going to pick the Suns.
I am going to go with Portland because they have not proven me wrong yet. Yes, part of their seeding has to do with the fact that the Lakers are not as buttoned up as they should be. Bam. The speaker was loud. But as that goes, I think I have a good feeling for Portland. All right, as we approach the Saturday, which is the second to last day of the NBA regular season, which is harder than an NFL regular season. But Saturday, we have Lakers versus Pacers. As you said, LeBron is still hurt. Who are you taking?
I I don't think the Lakers. I don't think the Lakers get their act together. I think I could see the Lakers losing this because this game is going to mean a lot for the Pacers as well as they're trying to get ready for the playoffs.
I am also going Pacers.
On
I
the same page. We argued a lot, but then we came back together to be on the same page.
come for the sports, stay for the friendships, don't pay attention to the names. Friend stream sports. Yeah, I'm with you. Lakers, if you're a Lakers fan who really is excited about the playoffs, you should not be. It's gonna be bad. It's gonna be real bad. All right, last thing, our usual NASCAR. It's the Dryden 400 in Dover. Connor, pick yourself a pole place winner.
I'm going to go Martin Truex.
He's having a really good season.
Yep.
Little MTJ, he won last week in Darlington. He's had his second win of the year. Really big on him. So as that goes, I'm actually going to say Joey Logano. A little short track, little out there. I feel like Logano could take it.
No
All right.
doubt. Well, that's good
Well,
to hear, Rutledge.
well, as that goes, we're going to end this thing as we're live, but we're going to give us our send off because I don't want the rest of the world to see how badly I'm losing this game. Connor, anything to the people before we sign off for the night?
Sometimes ties feel like a win. Sometimes ties feel like a loss. That's it.
What a true soccer fan. That's beautiful. All right, well, that's everything for tonight. For Friend Stream Sports, I'm Rutledge.
And I'm Connor.
Have a great night.